Hey, how's it going? It's the Baldy again from the Beardy and the Baldy, or just call me Shawn. Uh, so today on social media, I saw a whole bunch of posts from the comic world that really caught my attention. Um, Apparently, the creator Darwyn Cooke, who he's done quite a few things in comics recently. He worked on a Batman Spirit crossover a couple years back. He actually was the person to start the Spirit comic book again that DC published a few years back. I think he did the first like 12 issues of that run. It's an amazing run. Uh, Check it out if you get a chance. He also did a Batman Ego graphic novel, and he was doing the Parker graphic novels. That one I'm not too aware of, to be honest. That was his most recent work. And sadly, I have to be picky and choosy about what I can get at any given time, so I never got around to getting those. Um, but basically, yeah, it turns out Darwyn Cooke has a very aggressive form of cancer that he's fighting. And we don't really say a lot of bad words on the channel, but this is one of those times where it's just fuck cancer. Fuck it. I mean, cancer has touched my life by two loved ones passing away from the disease. It's taken the lives of a lot of other people, including David Bowie this year and Alan Rickman. And it's just one of those things that it feels like it is a never-ending problem out there in the world, and it's not fair. And I know there are people out there like Arrow's Stephen Amell, the star of the show. He does campaigns to try and help research for cancer and whatnot. And his tagline for it was "fuck cancer" as well, and you're damn right. Um, so I was motivated to actually do this tonight before I went to bed because it's just something that has been on my mind all day today, and I wanted for a while to start talking about some of the comics that I enjoy, and I haven't had a chance to really do any of those. So what better night than tonight to talk about one of the most amazing books that I've ever had the pleasure of reading, and uh, it's one that I had no idea it was going to have the effect on me that it did. It's called DC: The New Frontier. Um, so Darwyn Cooke created this a few years back, and the whole purpose of the book, as far as I can tell, is it's basically him capturing the essence of the Silver Age of DC Comics. He really wanted to capture the 50s going into the 60s, and have it be like true to the time of the actual world history that was going on and whatnot. And you have McCarthyism, the Red Scare, and it goes into the space race, and you have characters that normally are second tier characters within the DC universe compared to the trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, who they have their moments to shine in the book as well. But Darwyn decided he was going to reflect the light instead on characters who are of that age and were created at that time. And I actually found out tonight the way he introduced the characters was he introduced them through the chronological time in the book that they were created in the comics and introduced, which I thought that was a really, it's like I love those little geekdom things like that. So that was really cool to find out. He was meticulous with the way this book was done, not only through DC history but world history, and trying to make a point of touching all of the major themes of that time period, including segregation, which was an amazingly powerful story. He uses a character that adopts the John Henry moniker, and it was a black man who was lynched, but the lynching fails, so he actually uses the noose and a hood over his head and a sledgehammer as his sign to the KKK that he's not taking this anymore. And his story is one of the most tragic and emotional ones that you could possibly read in this book. But before I get into all that stuff, and I'm honestly, I know these reviews have been going ridiculously long, so this is one review that I'm going to try my best to keep to a fair minimum compared to what we've been used to on the channel. Basically, New Frontier was a book that a lot of my friends were saying, you need to read this if you like Superman and you like these other characters and DC in general. And I am a stubborn individual. Absolutely stubborn. I don't like it when people recommend things to me because I feel like they're pushing their tastes on me, and who's to say that I might not enjoy what they like, or who's to say I will enjoy what they like even. Now granted, in the past, my friends who endorsed this book, they weren't wrong in other things that they said, hey, you need to check this out. With a few exceptions, one of which was Dune. Dune, I understand that that's the roots of a lot of sci-fi out there, and it's such a big, influential novel, and the movie is this or that or whatever. I was bored to tears watching that movie, so that was one of the few where I'm like, nope, didn't win me over there. All that aside, I had gotten it from at least 3 or 4 different friends saying, you need to check this book out. So I was working at the comic shop, Comics Connection at the time, and I saw that they had the Absolute Edition, which is what I'm holding here, and it actually has a book jacket, which makes it even more awesome because right on here, Darwyn Cooke everywhere, and even the design of it, the overall style is so much. This is a reflection of what you're going to get inside, which is absolute goodness, people. This is the kind of stuff, and I even love on the top. It's just like almost you see the boxes of that time, like board games or whatever, and you're going to see this style and flavor to the design of that era. Darwyn Cooke actually, before he really got into comics as his main source of income, he actually worked as a graphic designer, which that gave me hope. That was really cool to know. And I was it makes me feel good to know he put in like 15 years as a graphic designer before he even went back to comics. He started in comics, but I guess financially it wasn't viable for him, and then he went out and he was a graphic designer. He went into animation. He actually worked on storyboards for the Batman animated series, the Superman animated series that Bruce Timm did. And then I found out he actually animated the credits, the opening credits to Batman Beyond, which I always thought was an amazing opening for a show. So right off the bat, how cool is that? I mean, it's so influential, both of those shows. So influential in how so many fans of my age and older and younger view these characters. So right off the bat, you're in good hands with Darwyn Cooke, because he's of the caliber of storyteller where he gets these characters. He knows what's true up to these characters, which is awesome. All that aside, so my friends were pretty much, you need to read this book. And I decided, I'll pick up the Absolute Edition, because if it's as good as they're saying, fine. I'll get that version because it's right here at the shop. And then I have no excuse to say, well, I liked it, but I didn't bother getting the one that has all the bells and whistles and whatnot. Bought it, brought it home, and it sat on my desk for quite a while, to be honest. First off, when you look at how many pages are in this thing, it was daunting to think of. You know, I'm the sort of person that it takes me a while to get through a lot of books, even graphic novels at times, because it's always been a weird thing with me. I'm a visual person more than a verbal person, or at least a word person, I guess you could say, because Lord knows these videos are very verbal. But there was this one night I had a lot going on in my mind, and every time I tried to go to bed, nothing was happening. It was just, you know, lay there looking up at the ceiling and just wondering how many hours you have left until you got to go to work. So I got out of bed, went out into the living room of the apartment that I was living in at the time. Didn't want to watch TV, didn't want to do anything else. And I thought, well, New Frontier's in there. I'll give it a shot. So I go over and pick it up, sit in the living room. I figure I'll start the first couple of pages. Let's see what happens. The next thing I know, those first couple of pages turned into the first third of the book. Next thing I know, the first third turned into 2/3. And before morning, as in sunrise, I had finished the book. I've never ever done that, at least to my memory. I don't remember ever doing that in one sitting for many things in my entire life. And honestly, it wasn't one sitting, because New Frontier is a book that it's so expansive. It is so full of love. It's full of love for the DC universe. It's full of love for the characters that Darwyn Cooke wanted to represent in this book. He's representing Hal Jordan, Green Lantern. He's representing the Flash. He's representing the Challengers of the Unknown. He's representing Martian Manhunter, who is a character that I never really had an opinion about until I read this book. He's even showing in the timeline, you know, like Wonder Woman and how she's lending a hand to the history going on in the world at that point. He's showing you the addition of Robin to help Batman, and why Robin is an important character for Batman to have as part of the Bat family. He's showing Aquaman in glimpses and whatnot, and it's the sort of book where you're seeing like Ted Grant Wildcat in the boxing ring in Vegas. You're seeing Oliver Queen and whatnot, and Bruce Wayne, and doing what Bruce Wayne does best when he's a playboy millionaire out there in the world. But all of that aside, he puts so much heart into this book. He puts so much emotion into these characters, and you are beyond invested in all their journeys by the end of this. And when they finally have that moment where they have to go up against this greater threat that no one hero could possibly stop on their own, with the exception of probably Superman, who he actually, I guess the term would be, he Janet Leigh's Superman, where in Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock had Janet Leigh, who was a very name actress of the time, takes her out of the movie right after the shower scene, and all of a sudden you're left with the rest of the movie, and how is that supposed to play out? In the case of this, he takes Superman out of the equation, so it's up to Green Lantern, who is still new at being Green Lantern, and the Flash, and Martian Manhunter, and Wonder Woman, and everyone else, to lend a hand to stop this greater evil in the world. And honestly, like me being a Superman guy, he wrapped me up in this tale so well that it didn't matter to me Superman wasn't a huge part of this book. It didn't matter to me that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman were kind of periphery characters for the first time. He was, like, Green Lantern is a character that I only in the last few years got invested in because of the Jeff Johns run on him. So I guess it's been about a decade that I've actually like thought Green Lanterns have been pretty cool. The Flash is one of those characters that for me, I wasn't reading constantly or whatnot, but he was one of those characters that anytime he showed up, it's like, yeah, it's the Flash. And I don't know what it was about him, but he always like made me happy. Basically, I don't know. It's just the hopefulness about the character. But I never really got into him in the same way that I would have gotten into Superman or Batman growing up. Basically, I had a couple of Flash comics. Same with Green Lantern. I had maybe like a couple issues here or there. And Martian Manhunter I only knew through Justice League, so it was even rarer for me to really read anything about him. But it's the sort of book where it captures the opinion of the time and the feel of the time, which was at that moment of history, even though there was the Red Scare and it deals with that, and even though there was segregation and racism, which it deals with, there was still this bright hope for the future, and there was still, like Kennedy's speech, which it's part of the book. It ties it in a beautiful way at the end to have going forward the New Frontier speech that he gives, and you see the New Frontier speech lining up with these moments with the characters and the hopefulness that those characters are pointing towards, and the way that they want our world to be, and they want to help us get there and whatnot. But it's one of those books that, and here I Kevin Smith the crap out of this book. I really do. I just thinking about this one gets me in tears, because it's not sad tears. It's he gets it tears. It's the sort of stuff where it shows the little guys. And I know to some people, Flash, Green Lantern, they might not be little guys, but they're human. They're the guys who they are given abilities in order to become heroes, but deep down it's who they are that is able to make them more heroic than they could be just by getting abilities or whatnot. It's sort of the Captain America syndrome in that way. Barry Allen definitely was a character that he's a hopeful guy even before the accident that turns him into the Flash and whatnot, and it only just amplifies him as a character when he finally gets hit by the lightning and becomes the Flash. And Green Lantern, Hal Jordan he's a test pilot, so he's a daredevil and whatnot, and him wanting to be bigger than himself by being able to do something he never was able to do, the biggest test that you could possibly imagine, going to space, and his journey to try to get there and how he gets there. It's moving. It's the kind of stuff where if you have any dreams in your life, if you have any aspirations and you think to yourself, it's too big, this is one of those books that helps you go, it might not be as big as you think, and you might get there in a roundabout way, but you'll get there. It's hopeful. I love that it's hopeful. Can't say enough about the hopefulness, unfortunately. I'm just rambling. But yeah, this is a book that so many times reading it the night that I read it, I had to put it down because it made me just well up in so many tears I couldn't help it. I couldn't read the page anymore. And I also was afraid of getting tears all over the pages and ruining the pages and whatnot. So I think if I remember right, there were 5 to 6 instances where I had to put the book down. It was too much for me at that moment. One of which, like I said, the John Henry storyline, the ending of that is powerful. And they have Edward R. Murrow in the aftermath of that story talking about it, and you just see the DC universe listening to him doing this news report in different places. Because I know there's a part where like Clark Kent is watching the news and seeing this. It's it's powerful beyond like I don't want to even keep moving into the hyperbole of it. It's just you will feel for these characters more than you possibly expect, basically. Um, but anyway, I'm probably doing a completely horrible job at this because it's like my mind's kind of going in all these different directions trying to explain this book, and basically, if you love DC Comics and you haven't read this book, you need to. If you love DC Comics and you have read this book, reread it sometime. Um, it's one of those books that, for me, reading it once, it was so powerful to read the first time. I actually have not gone back to it since then. It's a book that I want to read again sometime soon. And hearing the news about Darwyn Cooke made me go, you know what? Maybe it's getting to be time that you need to sit down again and go through this one more time and just remember what he put into that book. But basically, a couple years ago, I got to go to Baltimore Comic Con, and he was actually one of the guests at the show. So I brought my copy. I got to meet him. I was one of the first people in line when he finally showed up and was ready to start signing. And he was a true gentleman. Really, really a pleasure to meet him. Really a pleasure to talk to. And he was easy to talk to. And he was really kind to me because I was holding my Absolute book. And he's like, "Oh, please put it down on the table. You've been carrying it long enough and whatnot." And, I got to talk to him, told him my name and whatnot. And he actually did an inscription in the book, which I thought was pretty sweet. Right here, for Shawn. And then he also did over here a quick rendering and profile of Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and signed that as well. And I remember he said, it's the least he could do to do something like that because I invested in the book that he did. And, that's the class stuff. When you meet these creators and you get a chance to just, I don't tend to try to sit there and talk to the creators for a long time because I don't want to take up their time too much. I know they have other people they want to talk to and meet. There's other fans who want to meet them. But when you get that quick FaceTime with them and it's enough to let you go, oh man, this guy's awesome. Sometimes that's all you need going forward. But yeah, I really enjoyed meeting him. I really enjoyed the fact that he signed the book the way he did. And one of the things that I had to tell him, even though I felt a little embarrassed by saying it, was I wanted to let him know how the book affected me. So I just flat out said to him, "Your book made me cry." And he just kind of smiled, and I guess he took that as a compliment because it really affected me. And I said, yeah, the one moment in particular really got me was with the Flash. It's near the big climactic fight in the end of the book. Not to give the whole book away, but the Flash is a character who's out there trying to do the right thing just because to him this is what he should be doing if he has these abilities. And because of the Red Scare and because of all this other stuff going on, a lot of people are questioning his motives, and they're basically turning it into, no, you're not the good guy, and there's a fear and all this other stuff. He's wearing a mask and whatnot, and there's people who just they're not into what he's about. So he actually goes on to TV and he announces that he's done. Um, and it's a really big smack in the face moment when, as a fan, you're reading this and you're like, my God, they actually forced him to stop doing the right thing because of fear and because of intolerance at that time of history. But then later in the book, Barry's sitting on the couch and he's watching the TV and he's seeing this event happening and he realizes what needs to be done. Even though he's putting himself and his wife Iris in danger, it's the whole, the world needs me. And it's the hero call moment. I'm going to try to get through this without crying, I promise, but I'm already misty-eyed knowing I'm about to do this, so you've been warned. So Kevin Smith and I could do our own little video where we're just two grown men babbling and crying with each other over these moments, I guess. So, I just wanted to attempt to read this part here. Alright. I promise I'm not going to read down to you. So, alright. Chapter 13, Danger is Our Business. And that is the scene off the coast of Florida. It's been an hour since that broadcast and reports have been pouring in from all over the country. A menace of epic proportions bearing down on United States soil. Experts estimate its size as roughly 2/3 that of Manhattan Island. Authorities are urging all residents of Florida to evacuate the state immediately. Militia and Coast Guard crews are working tirelessly to ensure the exodus is as orderly as possible. But the question on everyone's lips is, will that be enough? How can we stop something that large, that omnipotent? The White House hasn't issued a formal statement yet, and that is leading to speculation about a possible nuclear response. That's Barry talking here. Sweet Moses. Iris, honey, where'd you go? There's something I want to tell you. And Iris is behind him. I know, Barry. Barry. Where'd you get that thing? Iris is holding out Barry's Flash costume, uniform. Barry, please, I'm an investigative reporter. And I know you. Barry, darling, I quit that because, well, for us. So you wouldn't be marrying a criminal. So I wouldn't have to hide such a big secret from you. And Iris, you don't have to hide from me, Barry Allen. And you can't hide from yourself. You've been blessed with this ability, and you want to use it to help people. God, I love you. So true. I. And then they hug at the bottom panel. You go down there, baby, and you show them what I already know. You're no quitter. You're my hero. It's just one of many moments where it's amazing the simplest lines that he uses can convey so much and make the reader respond in such a way. But yeah, that was the moment I used to let Darwyn Cooke know how it affected me. I love those kind of moments. The Flash TV show is so full of those moments. And whenever somebody says, run, Barry, run, I'm always misty-eyed because that scene here almost is in that show every week. Anytime somebody says to Barry, you can do this, and just, run, be the hero. And another thing from the male perspective, or from just anybody's perspective of someone that loves them, having someone that loves you flat out look at you and know you're capable of something and tell you, do it. It's like they got your back. They know. That's the good stuff. That is that is what the superhero stuff is about to me. It's not about movies where action figures get smashed together and that's apparently a story these days. It's not about these big crossover events that are supposed to make money for the comic book companies or for the higher business guys and whatnot, the larger companies and whatnot. It's about moments like that for me, and it always will be. It's the stuff that, especially for me, I'm a 37-year-old man. I hope to one day be able to put out my own comics and kind of give back in a sense, to show these are the ways that the stories affected me throughout my life, and tell stories that hopefully are meaningful to someone out there, whether it's someone younger than me or someone my age or someone older who may be disillusioned with what the other publishers are doing nowadays. And I didn't expect to find it in this kind of a book. As silly as that sounds now that I'm talking so much about it, but there's a lot of hits or misses out there. And, you know, long story short, so I'm telling him about that scene and how that one was one that really, really got to me. And if I remember right, he said, "Thank you." And I noticed his chin started quivering, and he actually got a little misty-eyed himself. And I felt almost like if I actually can do my comic stuff, I know exactly how he'd feel in that moment if somebody said the same thing to me at some point. I'm glad I got to meet Darwyn Cooke, and I'm glad I got to say what I wanted to say to him after reading this masterpiece, amazing book. And basically, I hope everything goes well for him, and that we still have a powerhouse creator still out there ready to tell more stories after his battle is finished with cancer and he can move on with his life and create more things that are going to touch more people's lives. For now, I'm going to just, send good thoughts, send good energy, prayers. My thoughts are with the family and him, and hope that this is just a speed bump for him in life. And the way I basically can sum it up, as corny or cliche as this might sound to some people right now, there's got to be a hero deep down in him too, because only a person who has it in him could write the kind of stuff that he wrote in this book. I don't believe him to be somebody who doesn't believe what he wrote in there. And I think he has it in him to be a great fighter, and he's going to pull out the other side of this. And he'll laugh at cancer and just, prove me right, which I would love right about now. So, anyway, this is the tearful Baldy. Just wanting to throw that 2 cents at you, please. You don't have to get the absolute edition. You're going to get a lot of good bells and whistles with this. A lot of the concept work in here, and a lot of the thought that Darwyn put into this book is in this great edition, absolute edition. But if you just manage to pick it up any way that you can, do yourself a favor. Please pick it up. It's a great book. Pick up other work by him too. His run on The Spirit was awesome. I love that he basically picked up where Will Eisner left off, in a sense, to me. And he really carried the tradition of what Eisner was doing in his own comic strips with The Spirit back in the day, and just brought it into the now. And he's one of the few who could have pulled it off, and he did. And it was a gorgeous work that he did there too. Beyond that, yeah, anything he does is worth a look. Don't think just these are the only ones that are worth it. Pick up anything that Darwyn Cooke has done, and you're not going to regret it. So, until next time, this is Baldy, or Shawn, and I'll catch you next time for happier times, I hope. See ya.